got this GTC in. It's a new owner, and one of the requests they had was just kind of go over a GTC and you know, all the little controls and stuff. Even though it's in the owner's manual, there's a little bit of, you know, I figure I just go through, you know, a start process, and then we'll go from there. So on a GTC, I guess the first thing is just to start it. So you know, battery's connected, you have the key, so you turn the key on at 180 degrees, and what'll happen is you shouldn't hear any noise, because this A button, this is A on it, is the fuel pump. When you're starting cold, you want to start it where you hit the fuel pump. You'll hear a little bit of clicking. On this car, it's got the little Bendix or facet pump, so it's just going to do a little bit of priming. And then what you'll do is you just give the gas, you know, a couple pumps, and then what you'll do is you just make sure it's in neutral, obviously, and then start it. Now, when it's hot, you don't have to do any pumping. You just turn the key on. These days, I leave this A on all the time. I'm going to drive this car for the first time to see whether or not the mechanical pump is up to snuff. But for now, we're going to take this drive, and we're going to keep the A button fuel pump on just to make sure that we have enough fuel. Don't want to, you know, fuel starve it and everything like that. But let's take this car out for a drive. Today is one of those cloudy days. Try to get the drive in before it starts to rain. So these belts are kind of funny. They're original equipment, but the way you get them to work is you have to align the arrows, and then that'll stay in. They don't fit great. I never like wearing them, but that's just original equipment. Make sure I have my cell phone and my license, just in case it breaks down. So I'm just going to listen for some bumps and any of that weird noises, see what the carburetor sounds like, see if there are any weird bumps or rattles from this car, having never driven it yet. Feels pretty good. Have a little warning light here. I don't know what that is. Let's check out. A little rattle there. Something's rattling down there. To find out what's loose. Papers are starting to fly around. So we're in 4th gear right now. Track's pretty straight, no vibrations. Says we have 3/4 of a tank of fuel. Hopefully that's correct. Feels okay. Steers pretty straight. Turn-in's okay. Let's see what 5th gear sounds like. Noises. Roll up these windows and take a listen with the windows up. Very humid day today, though. bearing noises, so that's good. You know, what I'm looking for is, you know, there's all sorts of bearings that could be making noises and whines and things like that, so I'm just listening. 5th gear sounds good. 4th gear sounds good. I'm listening to whether or not the torque tube's making noise. There's a rattle coming in from here. I gotta figure out what that is. I think it's a loose spring or something inside the shifter mechanism. Take a look and see what that is. Ventilation wise in these cars, they're not that great because they kind of changed the older cars, you know, from the older cars. The older cars used to have this good forced air that when you open the vent, it would just come right on in. I mean, obviously we can open these vent windows and that'll help a little bit, but you know, not a lot. But the reason is because they put air conditioning in, they figured everybody would be running air conditioning. But I'm gonna have to open these windows there, so I apologize if you can't hear me, but it's just too hot today to be riding with windows up. Temperature's up. Looks like the temperature is good. So we're at 140 kilometers, whatever that is. Feels pretty good. Track straight. Turn down here, let's see. It looks like we have turn signals. GTC's really just, they're really such a joy to drive. They have such good power to weight because they're light and they, torquey engine. Huh, interesting. Exhaust has a funny noise at like 5,500 RPM. I think it's just the exhaust though. What I'll do is now that I got oil temperature up, oil temperature is showing about 70 degrees Celsius, which is about right. Water temperature is showing about 80 degrees, about 85 degrees, 82 degrees Celsius, which is pretty good for kind of a cool morning this morning, probably about 75, 80 degrees. Feels pretty good. So now that I got oil and water temperatures up, I'll take it back to the shop, idle it in the driveway, and make sure that the cooling fans are working, and make sure it cycles on and off a little bit. You want to make sure that this guy gets stuck in traffic, that the car doesn't overheat and boil over. Made sure that the brakes worked as far as a panic stop. It seems to stop pretty well, good modulation. Oil pressure is still doing well now that the water temp and oil temp's up. Sometimes these engines, the oil pressure will drop off because there's too much clearance when things warm up. But so far everything looks good. So on my hit list that I gotta check on this car as I'm driving it, I'm just running through my mind what I have to do. Gotta check out this little warning light on the dash, why it's on. I think I have all the switches off, so I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to go either look at a manual or just try to figure out. I want to check the cooling fans, make sure that they're working. And then I want to check out this rattle, figure out what's going on with this rattle back here and the shifter mechanism. And you know, the carburetors feel fine. I don't see any reason to change anything. It feels like it's pulling fine. You know, it's like, don't fix what isn't broken. It doesn't show any signs of running rich, or it's not smoking in the back. So I'm kind of feeling like this car is probably good. I mean, the things that I went over when I went underneath the car and saw the little rubber gaiters and things like that, I talked to the owner, and their feeling is that they're just going to save that for the winter. He'd really like to take this car and drive it when the weather's good, which I don't blame him. So my advice is that the little rubber gaiters and the ball joint boots and things like that, I didn't see any play in the ball joints. Obviously, when those boots crack and rip, dirt and debris can get in there. And, you know, yeah, you're going to exponentially ruin the ball joint. But I didn't see any play. So, you know, if you want to drive them, ball joints got to be replaced anyway. So my feeling is drive it for the summer and the fall. Bring it back to me in the wintertime, and we'll change all the rubber. You know, and I also want to be pretty conservative on these cars. Like when a guy gets a car, jumps a lot of money on these cars. The last thing you want to do is take it away and spend more money on the car. I always try to be a little bit conservative as to what needs to be done so the guy can enjoy it. And honestly, to my benefit, it's always good to have a customer that loves the car. So like my feeling is, if I get the car so it's safe, it drives, he takes it, drives it, enjoys the hell out of it, and you know, he comes back happy. Comes back ready to spend more money on the car and do all the little upgrades because he's just really fallen in love with the car. If I get a car and it's new to a new owner and he immediately sends it away, he doesn't get to drive it, and you're fixing it, and then you're charging him more money, and it's like he's not happy because it's like not with him, just spending money and more money, and then he starts to get, you know, not happy with the car. So that doesn't work for either one of us. I want my customers to be happy. So giving it back to them as soon as you can so you can drive it for a little while, I think it benefits all of us. Got a little bit of a rattle. I'm going to take a look at that. That's what I was hearing when I was driving it. So I want to figure out what this light is. See, none of those. I got to figure out what that light is. If worse comes to worse, I just got to look at the manual. I wanted to thank Larry for pointing out what was going on when I was driving. So I was driving along and I couldn't figure out what that light was because it's not in the manual. The manual talks about the three other lights: the defroster light, the headlight, and the pump, and the electric fuel pump. But it didn't tell you what the fourth light was. So I was trying to figure it out and I couldn't figure out what it was. It's not labeled on the gauge. And it just, everything I tried, all the switches, I tried turning all these switches on and off, and none of them would change. I mean, you could see the other ones going on. Like for instance, if I did the defroster light, let's see, if I did rear light, that would go on. I'd have the A button, that would go on, and headlights obviously would turn on and off. So couldn't figure it out, but you know, shouted out to two GTC, longtime GTC owners, and says, what the heck is this? And it was as simple as saying, it's the choke cable. So there's a choke lever down below, which I'm not a big fan of. I never used choke, but it was just kind of touching enough. It wasn't actually activated, it was just touching. So there's a warning light for the choke, and that's what it was. So figured that one out. When I was driving this car, the noise I heard was coming from one of the mufflers, and here it is. You know, I was just checking all these, and so that's what you could hear. This one's not making noise, but it's this one. So I got to tighten up these nuts or figure out if I have to put washers or something. But I don't think any of these other ones. This one's got a little bit too. So I'm gonna go through that and just try to tighten those nuts and washers or something, just to see if we can get rid of that noise. I mean, a lot of other noises going on the car when it's running, but that I heard even when I was driving on the road. I just heard it out of all the other noises. So I'm gonna take care of that too. All right, rattle is gone. So the nuts that were up there, some of them were just bottoming out, and that's why they were rattling, because all they are just, there's a welded nut on all four corners of each muffler, and the bolts they were using were just too long, and so they were bottoming out and allowing this shield to vibrate. So, you know, there's several ways. Some of them I shortened the nuts, and then I also realized that they had wallowed out the hole so that the actual nut was not really holding down the aluminum. So some of them I just put a bigger washer in there. I don't know if you can see, just to put a bigger washer in there, and then that way it also kept the bolt from bottoming out. And then some of them I just shortened the bolt, and each one was different. But basically, no more rattles. So that 5,000 RPM, you know, sound that I was hearing was nothing but just a rattling, you know, heat shield. But got that done. Thanks for watching.